gonna watch the Olympics?
Probably not. I'm not a big Olympics fan.
Yeah. Tell me about that, because
Sometimes
I'm not
Winter
going to get
Olympics.
into it either, but I know a lot of people who are surprisingly excited. I'm like, really? You're excited about it? Like,
Yeah,
I know I used to be more, but
it's interesting.
yeah.
It just doesn't it doesn't
Is it
mesh
because
with
it's
me.
Paris? Is it because of what it is?
No, it just
Sports?
never certain. Yeah, so I'm not a big sports person.
Okay.
I will watch, some football. I'll watch some. I do like tennis. I'll watch Wimbledon. Some of the.
Oh, okay.
slams.
Like, are you watching the Super Bowl? Are you that?
I'll watch the Super Bowl. Maybe I'll watch other games in the condensed version. 15-minute highlights.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal. How about you? How much sports activity?
I increasingly watch less and less sports.
Yeah.
And I find that, but it's really true, especially for guys. Like, that is a way that guys connect. And I notice when I go in for a haircut or something,
That's what people want to talk about.
yeah, I need to know that, or like even family gatherings and stuff. But really, over the last 3 years, I feel like I really disconnected from sports. And I think a lot of that was like political stuff. And a lot of it was like, I'm really busy and like something's got to go.
More consequential.
And it just
things.
doesn't matter. Yeah.
More
It's,
consequential.
yeah.
I actually, now that you mention it, I do recall, maybe late teens, early 20s, I would make sure I paid attention to standings so that I could converse.
Really?
It's like, oh, yeah, the Chiefs, man, they're looking pretty good in the West. You know what?
Dude, I'll admit this. It's almost embarrassing, but it's also like awesome. Like sometimes when I know I'm going to need something to talk about, have you ever done this? And I know it's like sports, something I haven't paid attention. I'll be like, what's the latest like sports headline to the AI?
Yeah.
Right? And it'll fill me
AI?
in.
I haven't done it with AI
Like
yet.
make me an expert in whatever, like whatever the topic. And it does, and it works, man. Like go in, and I'm pretty good at making conversation with anyone anyways, but like I've done that before.
It's a little artificial.
It's super artificial. Yeah.
Did you see the statistic that Joe Rogan is more trusted than any news organization?
No.
Yeah. So that tells you something where the media is at today.
Yeah. I did see that Tucker overtook him for the #1 podcast spot.
Oh, really?
Which
That's
is
fun.
pretty mind-blowing.
That's fun. That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Tucker, I saw his speech at the RNC,
Yep.
and I love the guy. He has been way back since Crossfire, so 30 years or whatever, but he's so honest with what he thinks. He's self-deprecating.
Mm-hmm.
He's funny, comfortable in his skin, and pretty much on target with, 90% of my belief system or whatever it is.
And now no longer cares what other people think.
Yeah.
That's another part
And you
of
can
it.
see that lightness in his being.
Yeah, you can,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah. Did you hear the story? So when did the convention happen? This last week, right?
Yeah.
Did you see his story? Did you watch his speech, by the way?
I watched most of the convention, yeah.
Okay. Did you see his when he talked about Antifa coming to his house
Yeah.
and his Trump calling his wife?
Yeah.
So for the audience, he said, he's talking about how vicious and terrible the left is, and Antifa in particular. And they waited. He said, since I'm public, they knew when I was at the office. They waited till he's gone, and they, went and rioted his house and tried to enter the house. And his wife was hiding in the pantry, and the police.
Right.
It was a big deal. And he said it's pretty traumatizing to his family. He said they're laying in bed the next morning, and her phone rings. And she answers, and he hears, this is Donald Trump. And she's like, well, Mr. President. He's like, I heard what happened. I'm going to come stand guard outside your house. And, and he said, there's a lot of hate out there. And she says, yeah, Mr. President, there's a lot of hate. He said, but there's also a lot of love. And I thought, I'm sure Tucker's being 100% truthful about that conversation. And it kind of really shows you the character, Trump's character to me. He's like, he's not focusing on all the hate. There's a lot of love. He cares. He's a genuine guy. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's done some things in the past, like a lot of people have, that would make him not a saint in a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah.
And then I keep coming back to it's not like a Valentine here. It's like it is a chess move. But I think that speaks to every human. Like, we all have like good and bad about us, and that's not really the point. What you're talking about with the president is like you want a capable person who's going to handle business, So it is interesting to see the human side.
How did you feel about the broadening of the tent?
Um, I don't know what to make about that. I feel like on the one side you have people who are going to throw out everything and just win at all costs if they can.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the proper way to combat that necessarily, because if you just play by the rules, you are going to lose. Like, or if you keep things conventional or
If you
traditional.
keep it a small tent and it's only people who agree with these three things, then yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, something's got to give a little bit probably, and you do want to like reach out into the culture, and I think some of that's like happening naturally because I hear a lot of people on X who you would traditionally over the last couple of years be like, well, they would never talk. First of all, it became more acceptable. I don't know if this was before or after the assassination attempt to like support Trump, to support Republicans publicly.
Yeah.
Publicly, there was a big shift. So I think some of that's happening naturally, like
Assassin-
whether the tent is big or not.
I think the attempt was after our meeting last time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a deal, huh? Unbelievable.
Pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy.
Several people
First
had
in your
predicted
lifetime,
that.
probably, right? Yeah, Tucker said it was going to happen.
Yeah. It is. I mean, give me your take first, and then.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple aspects. One, the actual, moment to moment, play by play of him, it happening and him getting back up, and his first instinct wasn't to cower and hide; it was to stand right back up and fight. And he had no idea if there was a second shooter or what was going on. And then immediately, the next one is like, how did that happen? Which we're still sorting out.
Yeah.
Some interesting things there. I mean, right out of the gate, a congressman, I don't remember who it was, kind of one that you don't usually hear about, reported that crooks had 3 encrypted offshore accounts.
Yeah. Nothing makes sense about this kid who was like a 20-year-old, able to sneak past security, offshore
Fly
accounts.
a drone.
Yeah, fly a drone through. By the way, there was some slow-mo footage. Did you see that? People were like, was this a UFO? But I think it obviously is a drone speeding by.
Really? I didn't
during
see
the
that.
assassination footage.
No.
There's a couple angles of it,
Wow.
real quickly. So it's like someone knew about that. Here, there's so many interesting things to talk about this. Somebody else was mentioning. Well, first of all, let's just stay on the crooks. This guy gets past all the security and does. It doesn't make any sense, and everybody I think knows that. But there are like 30% of Democrats who think that it was staged by Trump. I think the number's like 30-something%.
That would be impressive given that Trump doesn't control the deep state and the deep state hates Trump.
Yeah.
Because you have to, DHS, Secret Service, you have to, work with them to make that happen.
Yeah.
Right? How's that going to happen?
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. That's ridiculous.
That's right. But here's something really crazy. Someone pointed out, there's a famous picture now of that bullet whizzing by, and it's like frozen and it's elongated because nobody really shoots with that shutter speed. And that guy that snuck
8,000 frames per second or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's questions like, why was he shooting at that shutter speed? And under those conditions, it's not a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
But
I read a debate on that. You're the cameraman. You understand it better.
Yeah.
But I did read a debate that people outside sunny days, they'll use that more, but I don't know.
I mean, I'm not sure. But if you zoom out and you're not looking at that specific thing and you just zoom out, you have things like, this was the first time CNN covered a Trump event in a long time. Like one of his rallies.
Yeah, right.
Why?
Yeah. Why'd you pick that one? Butler, PA. I mean, he's doing them every week.
That's right.
Almost every day.
Yeah. So that bullet, it barely missed. Everyone knows it was miraculous.
That's right.
Well, and it can't be staged. I saw somebody try to recreate that, and it's the red dot from that distance in the scope. It covers up the face. You can't just aim for the ear, and you could not time it.
Oh yeah.
There's no
way.
way.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the other thing about staging. It's you're gonna let yourself stand there from 130 yards and be shot at.
Yeah.
The head?
Oh,
no,
yeah.
Of course you are.
Yeah.
That's not even worth airtime, I think.
Right.
An interesting one. You may have seen there's this idea of multiple shooters.
Yeah.
And I saw a video about the acoustic signature of the bullets and so forth. And I'm like, wow, if that's true, that's insane. That proves it. So I actually did the audio analysis, pulled out the waveform, timed the distance between the first 3 bullets and the next 5 bullets. No, there's no difference.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, that doesn't say there's not 2 shooters. It just says that they have to be at similar distance, which there is this idea that there was a window that a second shooter was at that was about the same distance, maybe even the building.
Sure.
So I don't know, hopefully truth comes out.
Well, it's crazy to think, though, coming back to that CNN thing or whatever, like why, and the camera people and stuff, had that bullet connected and that was, highly publicized and broadcast. I mean, can you imagine? Literally. And that was supposed to happen. Somebody wanted that to happen. Mm-hmm. And for everyone to see that.
It might have been a sick kid, or he might have had assistance. I mean, if it's true that he had multiple cell phones.
I mean, if I wanted to set that up, I wouldn't even know how to do that. And I'm a pretty techie guy.
He's a 20-year-old kid, and, a lot of this stuff isn't cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose, maybe a couple grand, you could get it all. But, yeah, they also reported, I think I saw in the congressional testimony, Christopher Wray or someone, I don't remember who it was, but I think the house, his apartment, whatever it was sterile. Mm-hmm. No fingerprints, no silverware.
Yeah.
No, it was like the really strange situation there too. So
and taken out immediately, so we'll never know anything else about anything, right?
Taken out.
He
was. Yeah.
And what about the slope thing? Everyone's already talked about how ridiculous. Cheadle, she's gone now. That's not good enough. Really, Mayorkas should be out. But
I mean, at worst, it's incompetence at a major level.
There's snipers on the other roof.
At best,
it's way slopier, and it makes no sense. Yeah, no, so it's a weird thing.
Yeah, it would have been if he was killed, it would be pretty concerning.
So what do you think? I think I've heard people float this, and I think it makes the most sense out of everything that I've heard so far. We've talked about in the past how it seems like there's a group of people. Both running our country and maybe even spread around the world that really are looking for those forever wars to continue.
Yeah.
And now we start to see, there was an Iranian attempt here to do an assassination. And then I heard the other day also, Iranians are paying for these protesters that are showing up and burning American flags. All of a sudden there's all this speak about Iran after we unlocked a bunch of dollars for them.
I saw the commercial, and this has happened now since the mid-teens. I saw video of the bus unloading those people. It's like, okay, well, someone paid to charter that bus.
Right.
Who paid for that?
But do you think it's Iran? Do you think Iran wants war with us? I don't think they probably do.
I don't know. It's just indicative of how little you can trust anything. It's really sad.
Yeah.
We're at this point. It's like we're just all flailing to find truth.
Right.
And because it's big implication, right? It's not like it's meaningless truth. It's not like did your neighbor cheat on his wife. It's like this is big time.
I know. But let's be honest though, if Iran sits on their hands and we just have mass migration, they don't even have to fire any bullets. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to have that hot war.
Speaking of trust, is or is not Kamala a border czar? Right? You've seen that? Have you seen that video?
I did. It's funny.
The media reporting she's a border czar in 2021 over and over and over and over again. Right. And now the media over and over and over again saying, that's conspiracy theory. She was never the border czar.
And the craziest part of that was Axios, who threw their own self under the bus because they clearly had said that she was the border czar and then later said, no, that was never true. People pointed out that they had said it, had the side-by-side screenshots, and they went and changed that article and said, oh, no, we reported that wrong in the first place. So to stick with the narrative, they threw their own brand under the bus.
What is that?
And Wikipedia scrubbed it. I saw the side-by-side of Wikipedia saying she was the border czar, and they scrubbed that. It's 1984.
It's scary. I saw a picture of talking points this last week that were circulated to media. It was a she. It could have been fake. I don't know. But I do recall I had a company in the 90s, early 90s, and this is when fax was a big thing, before email, etc. And I do remember having a client that circulated talking points, Republican talking. It was a Chamber of Commerce, and they had fax blast or something like that. And this is back when, business was all behind Republicans.
Yeah.
Right. Especially small businesses like local chamber of commerces. But I remember it's like, yeah, they send out I like was the service that they facilitated sending out talking points. So it's like, of course, of course they send out talking
Oh,
points.
yeah.
The problem is the media just bends over and, we'll report any fake talking point.
Yeah. It's bizarre. I saw a really funny meme. My wife laughed like crazy at this, and it was a guy like yelling in the face. I think it was a Sopranos clip. He's in the face of someone, and the text overlay is like, your continued ignorance is the reason we're in this mess. And it's like, and it really rang true to us because like we do talk with people a lot, and they just don't care.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. A lot of them don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, so, and we can come back to some of this stuff, but that CrowdStrike thing that happened, do you find that to be related to this in any way or not? Because that the attempt happened, and then all of a sudden it was like out of the news, like everyone already forgot because there's this big crisis.
Yeah, I think you always wonder.
That's weird timing.
If you put yourself in the position of someone trying to steer the narrative or deflect or whatever, of course it's the DNC, the CrowdStrike is actually, I believe they're probably a CIA cutout company. Mm-hmm. I think there's they're definitely all behind the whole DNC stuff from the Hillary's
there's a lot of connections.
And the CrowdStrike thing, being a tech guy, I can kind of talk about that. It was a null pointer reference. So C, a lot of this is coded in C, mm-hmm. C++. And you point to a spot in memory. The way you work in that, it's a really kind of a lower level language. Yeah. And you point to positions in memory. And everybody who elementary, from CS 101 knows that in C++ or C, you pass pointers around that point to memory. And there's something called the null pointer where you point to an invalid location in memory. Yeah. And it's like literally the most basic thing in programming. Sure. And somehow that made it through all of their levels of QC, QA and testing, mm-hmm. and got to the most sensitive point in the driver.
It touched
in
the
Microsoft.
Kernel, didn't it?
It's the kernel.
Yeah.
And so it's just like the Secret Service. It's like, at best, it's the worst ineptitude ever, mm-hmm. right? And at worst, it's conspiratorial, and maybe they had really malintent behind it.
Right, because that's the thing. Like everyone was saying, like I saw the media covering this is not a hack. This is not whatever. But that doesn't mean that something wasn't intentional. Like,
right.
A car engine isn't going to work if you if a wrench accidentally drops in. Like, like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer to that. It's another thing. It's like, who do you trust? What do you do?
Yeah.
But I mean, the mechanics. A lot of this, you can at least look at the forensics. Mm-hmm. Of the Donald Trump assassination. Where was he? Where were the shooters? You can look at the forensics of what the programming issue was with CrowdStrike and try and get as close to the truth as you can. Yeah. And then it's like you have to go with the most likely explanation, I suppose.
Yeah. So did that do a lot of damage, like economically? I mean it's already out of the news, kind of.
I haven't looked.
Because it's 8.5 million computers, right?
Yeah, I mean, Delta was down for...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it cost Delta tens or hundreds of millions.
Right. Does that make anybody rethink what they're running everything as their backbone? Or, like, are people going to be switching to Linux after this? Or not really?
It's too difficult. You're so entrenched in that's a decision you make early in a company's life, and you don't really... You don't see a lot of switching. Yeah.
That's crazy.
You're thinking Apple was cheering that day?
I guess, but it's always been a bit of a distinction, like a divide between, like, I feel like a lot of the corporate world just kind of does run on the IT departments and stuff on Windows-based stuff, mm-hmm. Linux stuff, and Apple's like always an afterthought. It's like the creative department, okay, we'll give those guys some Macs or whatever, but...
Well, here's an interesting thing. The EU in 2009 mandated... they've been after Microsoft a long time because they do own whatever 90% of the desktop market. The EU made them allow kernel access to APIs. APIs are programming interfaces. And so in a way, you could partially fault the EU for this. This is a government intrusion. It's funny
That's
because
interesting.
a lot of fingers, as usual, will point at big bad corporate America.
Yeah.
And in reality, this is the government interfering. Like Apple didn't have that problem. Apple controls their kernel. Nobody else accesses it. Hardware, everything goes through Apple. Windows, not the case. They had to open. The government made them open.
The EU does some wonky stuff, and I don't know what the overall agenda is over there. Like, speaking of Apple stuff, I hear from Apple people all the time in Europe. They're like, I don't get that feature. I can't have that because of some European thing. And Apple said, okay, we're not going to bring it to Europe then. Like,
Isn't that wonderful?
yeah, it's crazy.
It's so bad. Did you see some confirmation on Apple doing a foldable?
No,
Yeah,
I must have missed that.
Yeah, I think more confirmation of the rumor that they're going to make a foldable phone. And I chuckled out loud when they said, but it's likely not to hit the market till 2026.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's so slow.
If they do, they wait. I think they often do that because
Well, they've learned a lesson.
it's just it's the way that they operate these days. They don't have to be first, but they do try to be best whenever they do. I think but so tell me about it. You've been using a foldable for a while. Is it legitimately better?
Yeah, I love it.
And
why? Would not go back.
Why? So do you have a tablet in your life too? Or is that both?
So I'm this weird guy who I was always the early adopter of the larger screen. When the iPhone had a 3.5-inch screen, I was always going to, the EVO 4.2, 4.7, till it got ridiculous where I was carrying a 7-inch tablet that had phone capabilities.
Uh-huh.
But people make fun of that. But my thing is I spend, 90% time looking at the screen, not talking.
Yeah.
So I want a bigger screen. There's a limitation to how big you can carry effectively with you, and a foldable fixes that. So I'm all into that.
Although AR would really fix that, right? If you could just have.
Yeah, but I'm not going to walk around with the goggles, and I'm not going to probably put implants in my eyes.
Yeah.
That'll happen, right?
So
contacts, they have one contact, right? Have you seen the AR contacts?
I've seen that as a sci-fi concept. Does that actually exist?
I think they have something.
Oh, really?
It's rudimentary, but yeah.
How would you even have a battery in that thing? Like,
I don't know. Inductive power, probably.
Oh, like use your bio energy?
No, I actually don't know. I don't remember what the battery story was.
But do you find it's more bulky? Because it's like two phones in one, or is it not even a big deal?
It's not terrible. It's if you take it out of the case, that's not terribly thick.
Right. Yeah. Does the hinge stay like,
Yeah, it snaps
in good shape?
Snaps open. I've had no problem with that. There is a slight crease, coming down the middle, but it's not.
Just kind of gloss over that.
I don't notice it at all, really, when you're working with it.
Yeah.
It's nice for sharing videos with people.
Right.
I can see it from a distance. So yeah, I'm all into that. I'm hoping the aspect ratio of this is the Samsung Fold 5. The aspect ratio is really narrow and tall. So when you're trying to, part of the time you do use the front screen.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to do that, it's not quite my ideal. The new one that just came out, 6, is a little wider, but I might hit a Chinese phone that is even bigger.
That's funny. So you don't really feel like
aid and abet the enemy.
You like the freedom of being able to swap stuff out and use different things, right? So you don't try to like assemble an ecosystem where
I don't.
Yeah, why?
Yeah, but because the ecosystems aren't anything like Apple. They don't compete with Apple's ecosystem.
Yeah.
And like Samsung would be the only people that could have an ecosystem. Google has an ecosystem with the Gmail and the apps sync and back up, and so you are somewhat, but I just don't think it's like Apple. So
yeah. I'm curious. I made a course on productivity a long time ago. I'm just curious, like, do you have a productivity routine or do you just kind of like go about your business and don't think about it too much? Or are you like, do you have like apps that you use? Or
I'm totally unproductive.
Yeah.
It's that Pareto principle. I'm 80% unproductive. I'm unproductive 80% of the time. I'm productive 20.
Yeah. You just kind of pursue whatever's needed, put out some fires.
I wanted to write a book once called Do What You Want. And it sprung from this when my wife and I lived aboard. When we were sailing around the world. We had just been married, and so you're kind of getting to know each other and understand how we work. And she's like, oh, we have to clean this, so we have to do this. I'm like, yeah, let's, I'd rather wait till I want to do it. She's like, well, what do you mean? You never want to do that? I'm like, no, actually, eventually I'll want to clean the toilet, whatever it is. And when you
did any of this come out before you got married?
No,
like,
we were.
I'd rather just wait.
We're very traditional. Of course, we didn't live together, and we so you don't learn a lot of those types of things.
Yeah.
But I find when you do, for the most part, if you can, some things you can't, but if you wait till you're motivated by something, you're 10 times more productive.
Yeah.
You're very productive. You power, you're able to stick with it for 12 hours.
Yeah.
So that's my own way of being. I don't really have, any dedicated productivity routine. How about you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. One of the reasons I'll back up that I did that course in the first place is because I saw a lot of people who seem to be like high achievers, and they're like, here's my system and here's how I do it. I'm like, I do what I often do is I'm going to learn all about it and then like decide, what there is for me or not. Yeah. And what I found, so I kind of looked up, what are the main tools? What are the main systems? Who are the main proponents? And I really went through all that. And I came away with like, okay, I could see how some people, I know somebody who that would fit like really good. And I think they would use that, but that's not for me. Like, interesting. But I did come away with some interesting things, and I sort of assembled my own like meta thing, but it's nothing that I would say is like a system so much as I learned some interesting principles that are useful. Like, the GTD method, it's way too complex, and but there was the thing in there, and it was like, if it's going to take you less than 2 minutes, do it now. And it's interesting because that's like this mental hack, and it's like, there's some things I just don't want to do, and you think about it like, well, is it going to take me less than 2 minutes? Oh, okay, well, I'll just do it. Oh, and it took me only like 30 seconds, so there's some things like that. But I find also
schedule blocking, 15-minute schedule blocking.
Well, even that, like I find I kind of resonate with what you're saying. Like, even if I plan too far ahead, like, I'll come to something and it's just like, I'm not in the mood to do that. Or if I'm going to do it well, like until I am, so it's interesting. Yeah. So I feel like I've sort of assembled, my own thing, but most of the time though, I don't use a particular app. I very much use reminders with Siri, and I say, remind me at whatever. And then I have this app called Do, which takes that out of Apple reminders and it sucks it into that. And then it just nags you forever until you do it.
Okay. So here you go. So I use certain tools. One of them, that I can't live without is this screenshot tool. That's just so productive and efficient. But my to-do list is Gmail.
Oh, okay.
And so wherever I'm at, I'll send myself an email. And then it's a binary thing. There's starred and unstarred ones. So at any time, and then you can separate your inbox and you can filter by starred. And I have that on my desktop and my phone.
Yeah.
And so at any one time, I run about 80 to 150 tasks that are starred that I glance at, and it's like, okay, nail that one. So it's like a to-do list, but it's...
Yeah, it sounds like. But do you basically have one level of priority, it sounds like?
Yeah.
Like to do and not like, and there's no like red flag or like...
No, I find I can scan for the red flag. Like it doesn't, you get about 50, if I hit my start email box, I get about 50 or whatever that is on a screen at a time. And that 50 represents the last 4 months or something. There's some older things that eventually I want to do, next year, this year. So, but you can scan that 50 and, in seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and pick out the ones that are appropriate to work on at the moment.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
Do
Do you find that you're more productive in the morning? Because I think there's some stats as I was digging into the data that say like those are your best moments mentally of the day.
Yeah.
Do you find that or no? Because I know you're up late at night.
I'm a night owl. Yeah, I can work hard. It depends. Like I suppose tasks maybe are early, and then projects are late. That's probably what it is.
That's interesting.
Yeah, anything that takes long blocks of time, and I think that's family life, etc. It's 10 to 2 a.m. is quiet, and I saw who's the CEO of DeepMind. I saw him talking about that. And what he does is he basically he has an 8 hour day from like maybe 7 hour day, 9 to 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
That's just separate project based coding and thinking. Then he has, another 7 hour day, whatever, of work, or 9 hours, and then he has a few hours of family time in the middle. So he has like 2 jobs bracketing family time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting. So let me ask you this, and I've been thinking about this myself. When there's something that you're not excited to do, but you got to do it, how do you deal with that kind of a thing? Like, what motivates you to do that? Or is that not even a thing? You're just like, oh, are you a machine? I can do that. Like...
Yeah.
Because sometimes you, like, to your thing, like, well, I'll do that when I feel like. But some things, like, you have to do it because there's some deadline. The business deal's going to fall apart otherwise.
You don't always get in the mood to do it. I think what it is for me, it's a relative mood. It's like, it's not as bad. You never really want to do it, but it's not as bad right now than it would have been,
Yeah,
at
that's interesting.
At 8 in the morning. I think that's the deal.
Yeah.
And then there's some things you can just kick the can, because they aren't important. Like my lawn mowing robot. I have to get the perimeter wire.
Have you tried
down.
it?
No, I don't have
I
don't have my perimeter wire.
Okay, because I wondered if you got one that you had to lay down the track.
I did, yeah. At 20, I'm a frugal guy, and the good ones without tracks are $2,500. Takes a lot of time to justify, a lot of mowing in years to justify $2,500. And so this was a used one on Facebook Marketplace.
Oh.
$600 or whatever, but it requires the wire. And so
fascinating. Was it in good shape if you got it used?
Yeah, it's in great shape. It's with an extra equipment with it and so forth. It's probably retail is probably $2,300, and I got it for like $500.
You love deals.
I love deals. I am very gratified by getting a good deal. Yeah, not wasting.
I'm curious what that's going to be like. So keep me up there.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Because you have the pool robot.
The pool robot is such a great thing that that's what made me think about it.
If you lived in an apartment in a skyscraper, I know you'd have the robot that cleans the glass outside.
I've mentally engineered that 6 times. I've wanted to start a company around skyscraper window.
There is one though, right?
Now they're starting to come.
Yeah.
They're starting to come.
That's
but
funny.
What I want is home windows, and so one of the versions I've mentally engineered, I'll just say, addresses that. Because I think everybody would like to just never have to clean their windows.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of windows today.
Yeah, that's funny. But it would have to like crawl around your house and like get up. Is that
no?
Or you would take it around?
Mine is you deploy them.
Oh, but then you might as well just break the squeegee out, right?
Yeah, maybe. But
I guess it depends on the size of the house and the windows. There's some houses that have
big windows, high up,
right?
That kind of thing.
Yeah. So you got a deal on that. Where do you think that comes from? I know you consider yourself a value engineer, but like what drives you to get a good deal or value out of something?
I have always valued more money in the bank. I grew up, we were pretty poor. I was just remembering today, my dad, this is just before he was married, but he was a mover, and then they worked at McDonald's, and he worked a night job mowing a golf course. And I mean, I grew up, it was cinder block shelves, you didn't have air conditioning. So I've just always, and then my parents had a tumultuous and divorcing relationship, and oftentimes money was a source of those arguments. So I'm an only child, and I'm listening to these arguments, and money was a driver of that. So it's like, well, I'm not gonna have that as an issue. So I've always tried to, and it's just I would much rather have money in the bank that buys me freedom. I equate money with freedom,
right?
And so I'd rather have the freedom than that extra. So I'll give you an example. I'm struggling right now. I'm really close to buying a used Tesla, and I really don't need it.
Yeah.
But boy, the idea of being driven around, chauffeured around is pretty nice.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're there. They're basically there. 12.5 came out this last week, and you're basically there. You don't have to drive anymore.
So. Okay, let me ask about this. Yeah. That's interesting. That seems like it'd be a good fit for you. My initial reaction would be like, why wouldn't you get a new one that's going to last for a long time? You're the first one to put the butt print in the seat. The depreciation curve is just
doesn't work, right?
Uh-huh.
The way a depreciation curve is goes like that, asymptotic, whatever. And so you lose that first 2-3 years, you lose a lot.
So it doesn't bother you if someone picked their nose and flicked it all
Well,
over.
now it
and then,
does.
like- even if it was just for a year or
Thanks a
something.
lot, Chris. I'm going to be looking around everywhere. No, it doesn't.
doesn't.
Think about you go into hotels, you sleep in hotels
Yeah.
willingly. That mattress has been, people talk about, would you ever buy, people don't talk about this. I talk about this, but my wife and I talk about this. It's like, would you buy a used mattress? It's like nobody would buy a used mattress.
Right.
And yet you'll all go sleep on a mattress that's not been used by one person. It's been used by 10,000 people.
That's
and
funny.
for who knows what.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a psychological game for people.
Yeah.
But no, it doesn't.
So-
The used
Okay, so you don't need it,
phones. This laptop was used.
was it?
Yeah.
How funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
eBay. This is an eBay laptop.
So what's the debate though? I mean, like you would like to have it. Like
Yeah.
so why not?
It's the money at which it's worth it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like in my mind, I could go take a ride in a Russian MiG jet, but it's not worth it. It's like you can do it, doesn't mean you should do it, and so yeah, I just try to keep it really frugal. And
That's interesting. So are you of the mindset, like I know a lot of people
used, by the way, well, I'll use this as an example. The depreciation, again, even for laptops, for everything, phones, is like that. It's like if I buy this laptop, it's 24 months old, use it for a year, I sell it for almost what I paid for it, put it back on eBay, and you basically paid nothing.
Yeah.
Instead of having something, in a case of a car, let's take a $30,000 car, you lose $6,000 that first year. It's like, I
Right.
don't want to spend $6,000 a year for a car, $600 a month for that car.
Yeah.
It's not worth it to me.
That's
I'll pay
interesting.
100 or two, so that dictates where you're
Yeah.
at.
Okay. Well, so somebody else out there might be like, I feel like I've met some people like this, and they're like, well, I'm not going to buy a lot of stuff, but the stuff I'm going to get, it's going to be like really high quality stuff, and then I'm going to use it forever, like a great pair of boots or something, like work
But I
boots.
think you can do that. It's like, I only recently, so for 30, 40 years, I never bought a new car. And I could, but I never did. What I would do is I get a couple years old, top of the line, which I wouldn't buy top of the line, new.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't spend that much. So yeah, I agree with you. You can buy the nicest stuff. I just don't think you have to be first.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, someone out there, for your system to work,
I'm gonna
someone
be
has
crude.
to
You're
be.
gonna have to edit this out. But you ever see that Jaguar meme advertisement? There's a very seductive, attractive, sexy woman wearing maybe just a man's button-down shirt, in a kitchen, and Jaguar logo says, "You might not be first, but does it really matter? Jaguar certified used cars."
Funny. That's funny.
Yeah, cut that out.
That's funny.
I just always laugh at that.
Yeah. So what's your deal with like? I would assume then that you would actually not like this. Like Apple, for instance, has a refurbished thing, and it really doesn't knock that much off the price. And basically, like I don't know, if someone has a problem with their thing, they send it into repair, and they're like, "Oh, it's unfixable. We'll get you a new one." And then Apple like takes out the guts,
Yeah.
and but it's only like $200 off.
I've
or
done
something.
that. And
Well, is that
that's
a good
little
enough
bit.
deal, or would you
That's
prefer
usually
the
I've done it,
used?
but that's usually not good enough for me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Usually I'm going, like on computers, I'm going a year or two into the depreciation curve, and in a car I'm going. Well, it used to be 10. Now I'll go 3 or 4 years. In
Yeah.
the curve. Well, like the Teslas I'm looking at, I have my eye on a couple. They're 3 or 4 years old.
Is that the oldest you can go and still get the latest self-driving?
Yeah,
Is
you
that
can get
why?
18 or 19. No, you can get, but that's part of it. That's in the equation.
So
It's difficult.
how much would you save off the sticker price on that particular?
So a Model Y I'm looking at for 30 would cost me 60. It's a 22. I want full self-driving, which is a $10,000 option.
Right.
$8,000 now. So getting all that in the new one would cost me 60.
Okay.
And this is 2 years old. So if you think about that's $15,000 a year of depreciation. That's just disappearing. That's not. I hate depreciating things. I love appreciating things. I want
Right.
houses, stocks, things that make me money instead
Right.
of things that lose me money.
Right. and the body hasn't really changed in that time, I believe.
That,
It
yeah, the
looks
Teslas
identical.
don't change. And that's another thing with cars. It's like I would, traditional Detroit cars have whatever a 5 or 7 year body life. I don't know what they call it, version or
Yeah.
I don't know. And so I would typically wait and get one of the first years, and then it looks like you have the new one for 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah.
You
right.
got it a few years old, but you made sure you got that year versus the
So
next
why
year.
the Model Y? And are you going to drop your Cybertruck deposit if you do that?
I don't know.
Do you-
I don't know about the whole thing. The Model Y, more space. I did look at. I test drove
Not
it.
than the minivan.
I test more space than a 3, which is cheaper. I did test drive a Model S.
Yeah.
Someone here in town has. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, let me tell you one of the reasons I might not do it, because it's interesting. So, I have my open source driving
Yep.
in the minivan.
Which seems to work pretty good
It
from
works
the ride
pretty-
that I took.
It works pretty great on highways, and but it doesn't stop and stoplights and turn the corner to the right. It's more like a really good lane
Cruise control
keeping,
kind
cruise
of. Yeah,
control.
okay.
But it's pretty darn lax about monitoring you, so you don't have to touch the wheel. I can kind of look at my phone,
Right.
You gotta edit that too, because I'm gonna have an accident later. They're gonna go back to the tape, and they're gonna be like, he reads his phone. But the Tesla is more uptight, so you're gonna have a hard time pulling your eyes off of the road, and so that it's like, well, the whole
If
reason
you
I
cover
want
that
self-driving-
camera, will it not work?
I think some people do that.
Oh.
Yeah, but then I think it nags the wheel. Then
Oh.
it's like you gotta touch the wheel every 30 seconds.
I see.
So I don't know. It's just kind of a hassle.
Yeah.
But it's just it's that would just be more of a fun thing.
Right.
And there's safety. There's some value in the safety. That might be worth $1,000 or $2,000 a year.
But the Cybertruck, you could not get that used at the moment, and
Can't get it
and
used.
so that's interesting.
Why?
I found a hole in your thing
Yeah.
here. There was something that you wanted
Yeah,
new.
well, I haven't done it yet. So the reservation's there, but I haven't done
Now
it.
you won't.
Yeah.
I saw one the other day. Like I told you, I pulled behind one. I was like, yeah, that really is ugly, but I don't care. Like the whole thing is like nobody else has it, and it's it's so different that it's like in your face, kind of
Yeah.
like. And I gotta say, there's an appeal to that. I'm sorry, but also I saw it from the side, and it was like, yeah, that's cool, and I don't know, like,
Yeah, I don't know. It's a beast.
it's pretty cool,
Yeah. I think even he calls it beast mode, or there's a setting for beast mode or something. But yeah, and it's very functional. I'm into functional. That's why I have a minivan.
Yeah.
Like that follows, and that's
Well,
so functional. That
Is
truck.
there something to having in your arsenal of personal cars, do you think? I've thought about this myself. An electric and something that runs on gas, like an ICE,
Yeah, I think
just
so.
in case if the grid goes down, like
Yeah.
you're still mobile, or if they really screw gas prices, like, you know what I mean?
I think so. I think there's value for now.
So you can't go all Tesla. You can't get rid of the van and then
No, I wouldn't
have
get
the
rid of the
truck
van.
and
No.
yeah.
These big 20-hour road trips would still be a van.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. And so why not get the Falcon wings then? And the biggest, like if you really wanted
The X?
space. Yeah. You can get that used.
Price used. Yeah, that's more of a price issue.
Yeah.
Like a good X used is 50 or 60.
Is it?
Yeah.
Does Tesla retain its value pretty decently?
I haven't compared. I was literally just in the last day or two looking at the depreciation curves.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty similar. Yeah. Maserati's the worst, if anybody's curious.
Is it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I exercise with someone who has a Maserati, and it's like 68% loss in the first 5 years.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's funny.
I'm trying to keep myself down to losing, 10%,
Or less.
5%. So
It's crazy, and you don't realize this until a certain point in your life, but like just because something is like really expensive doesn't make it like the best. Like another example I think is Land Rover. They're constantly ranked as like they're breaking down all the time. Like
yeah.
they're
it's an
in the
English
shop.
car, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. British cars are more unreliable than most
Yeah.
Democrats.
Look, they look cool, very luxurious, crazy features in it, but they break down like more than other cars,
Yeah.
so that's interesting. I want to ask you about this. You brought up before we got going here the Peterson Musk interview, and I guess you watched the whole thing.
I did.
I saw some clips. Tell me what you
did.
thought.
So a couple obvious things. First of all, it was really interesting. Peterson spent a lot of time on God and belief, and Musk is not that. So there was kind of a disconnect in a lot of the conversation.
Hmm.
Peterson was also wearing a jacket that had Virgin Mary all over it, which is really wild. Which confirms, I think, he's really close to, converting to Christianity, becoming Christian.
I wonder.
Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, the progress I've seen in the last 10 years is serious. But Musk talked about his transgender son
Right.
that became a girl.
Yeah.
And yeah, you thought he was going to break down crying right there. But he's basically lost that child. Changed the name. It's gone.
Yeah.
Doesn't talk to him. And he said something that I thought was interesting. This was the very end of the interview. He said, so it's at that point I vowed to defeat the woke mind virus.
Yeah.
And we're making progress. That was the key to me, those
Right.
words. I think that probably made him by Twitter. I think that was probably...
That's what I saw some chatter about.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
Is that what? Because everyone assumed it was for free speech, but maybe it was
Well,
for
I
free
think
speech
a combination. I think it's a percentage of that.
in service
decision.
of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was interesting. But yeah, they spent a lot of time on what motivates you, what's your belief system.
I caught just some clips, so is the whole thing worth watching, or, is it?
They're two of my favorite people.
Yeah.
For me, it was worth
For that.
it. Most people maybe not.
Well, what was the bit about, he was kind of saying that curiosity more or less is his religion.
Yeah.
And for him to formally kind of say that, it's like, I kind of like knew that anyways from his past stuff. What's your take on that? Because I don't find that that's
enough for you.
Well, I don't find it to be accurate, and I don't find it to be, personally.
Tell me about the accuracy.
I think that there's a really good scientific case to be made. I think you're ignorant today if you think that people who believe in the God of the Bible, Christianity, are stupid people. I think there's a really
there's a lot of smart people.
Strong
Absolutely.
case scientifically for theism and for the Christian God in particular. And I find that somebody in his field, like he was really interested in physics, and just science in general. I find that him in particular has probably butted up against a lot of stuff that would leave me wondering. Then why would he? I feel like he knows. And I feel like there's got to be some reason.
What motivates your choice? Because it couldn't have obviously been curiosity in this case.
Yeah. So curiosity, it's just too vapid. That's it for me, I guess. I don't know. What's your take though on that?
Yeah, it's hard to think that most people don't think like you. Nobody thinks, we have this conglomeration of different motivations and thoughts and beliefs and so forth. And it occurred to me recently, and you might be this person, and I'm not being offensive here, but I was talking to someone who's a young earther. Mm-hmm. And so they believe and it's like, okay, well, help me understand, so did dinosaurs and people go together and so forth. And basically the takeaway was, I'm not a scientist. I really don't need to go that deep and go there.
Yeah.
And for the first time I got it because and this is going to seem stupid, but I'm like, go there everywhere. It's like, there's nothing, no stone left unturned. But I won't research antiperspirant, aluminum, and health effects.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm using my antiperspirant. It might be bad for me scientifically. I'm just not going to look at it because I don't have an alternative.
Yeah.
Right? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
I'm going to walk around being unpleasant. And so it kind of, for the first time, it's like, okay, well, I could see people just compartmentalizing and not thinking about certain things.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know.
If I agree, and I think my experience, growing up immersed in a world where people did believe like 6,000 years, and it was like a hill to die on, and that. I think that's very true. Like, oh, it's not my area, and it doesn't really matter. Like,
So that's interesting, since we're objective reality, and we're trying to come to a singular truth.
But I think Elon would describe himself as that too, and I don't believe that that's actually compatible with
truth.
that he cares. Yeah, truth is what he's really after, and that, hence the curiosity. And I would like to say, well, what is truth, and how is that defined? And it can't just be materialistic.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about,
There's some gaps
there's
there.
definitely some areas,
Yeah.
but some things. So like the deodorant example does matter. Like if that's going to take 5 years off your, I'm not saying it does. I just don't know, and I'm not looking.
Yeah.
But possibly, aluminum causes Alzheimer's. I don't know. And so you would say that does matter. And maybe if we're trying to think about fossil fuel generation and hydrocarbons, maybe age of the earth matters. So I don't have a full answer to that.
Yeah,
And
I feel like
I'm trying to be very tolerant of,
Yeah, I feel like it's sort of that milk and meat thing. You hear this in the New Testament, like when you're kind of an infant in the realm of Christianity or spiritual stuff, like you're getting the milk, it's like, okay, Jesus died, like it's the very, very basics, but then you do move on like later to the meat. And I feel like there's a lot of people in my life who should probably know better, who are still on the milk phase, and I don't know how to kick kick it up a notch, because I do think actually in this day and age, it really does really matter. I think it's done Christianity a lot of harm.
I believe it's a lot of harm.
For people to believe that Earth is 6,000 years,
So I think that does it a lot of harm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, I think, so if I had to say people who believe young Earth are typically like good valued families, right?
Right.
So if I have to choose, it's like, okay, believe that. I'd rather do business with you and have you in my social circle because you're good people.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want a super intelligent psychopath who has all the scientific facts, right? But lies and connives and
That's right.
right? It's like,
Yeah.
if you have to choose. And so kind of currently that's how that plays out.
Yeah. It's just, so he wants to spread, consciousness around the galaxy or around, even the universe, whether that's like organic or I think in his mind, synthetic, like doesn't like
Could be
consciousness.
cyber.
Yeah. And or go tell me.
Although maybe not. He's got this whole beef with Sergey or Larry, whoever, that he's a speciesist because he does value humans over.
I know, but these are the things.
Yeah,
though.
he doesn't.
Yeah.
And to his defense, I'm a big fanboy. It takes dedication and lots of time on task to sort these questions out.
Yeah.
And he's doing his thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
He's not like the woke Google people who are using it in a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
He's generally what he's doing seems like it's okay right now, until he's like implanting us all with chips.
Yeah. He's just like everyone. He's on a trajectory, and I do like where he's for the most part.
I mean, what would we do without X? Like, you saw the shooting. I was watching it live on X. It took, you saw the media for that first couple hours. Trump falls.
Yeah.
Trump startled by noise. You sick
Crazy.
people. You sick people.
Crazy.
And we're literally watching it happen. It's obvious he was shot. You heard the shot. You saw it. The Secret Service are there. There's blood. It was like a good period of time. In today's day and age, it was a good period of time until they had to give the truth.
Yeah.
Which,
Well, it's like,
so thank goodness for X.
Yeah, but it's kind of the same conversation. Like Elon wants to base things on truth, but what is truth? That's my question for him always. Mm-hmm. But it's the same thing with you're talking about the media, and at the convention, I don't know if you saw this, the NBC team, they were all on their iPads and had their backs turned to the president when he was giving his speech. Like they weren't even paying attention. And they're not there to report.
They're terrible people.
And the MSNBC staff, they had a fake screen that made it look like they weren't even there. Like they're not there to report. And so to your point, I don't know what we would do. I like the trajectory that he's on. But I think that's why you and I are putting together this tool, at least for ourselves, for other people who are like us, because that's what the conversation I think with Elon highlights is like, even in the pursuit of truth, people have different takes on how to get there. And that's going to end up having implications, for
Yeah.
society, for your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No
yeah.
doubt. So, how do you feel about the little bit off topic? How do you feel about the party that wants to save democracy, subverting 14 million votes and forcing Biden out of the campaign?
It's crazy.
They're all about, they keep talking about how they're the party of saving democracy and
Right.
everything, stopping Bernie Sanders, stopping RFK from getting on
Right.
the debate and the ballots, and they're you can only say they're the most disingenuous people so many times. But
I feel like
they're
at this
terrible.
point, so that's
if he
totally
was up
me.
if he was up in the polls, they wouldn't have done this. Has
No.
nothing to do with competence.
Right.
This is just purely about the power and the win.
Yeah, but I feel like your average person, again, that is just listening to the media, and when I say media, I almost mean not just like the news, but like just culture, like Hollywood,
Yeah.
like it's like everywhere. And the average person, I think, has this sense of like some sort of dissonance where they know things are weird and not quite right, but they're either so preoccupied or they just don't have the capacity to wrestle with these issues. I don't think, because it doesn't make sense. You in the primary, you had all the Democrat people like vote for their candidate, and now that's out the window. But the media doesn't question it.
And they didn't get a say now.
No, and they're all getting on board with Kamala because the media says like it does, and so I think your average person is like, this doesn't, something feels weird, but they don't know what, they don't know how to put the finger on it,
Yeah.
and they won't let themselves have access to
Yeah,
like
and,
X
and
or
to be fair, you said it. They don't have the time. They don't have the inclination or time to be going deep. All they can do is hear what they hear.
That's why I think there really are these levels of I used to hear about like, oh, the elites this and that, like the elites, like give me a break. But I do think there's a case to be made that it's like Alex Soros versus Elon versus you do have people at the top tier with some resources,
Well, they have more reach and influence, absolutely.
right, battling it out. And then I think there's like rungs. There's some people like on the other rungs having their battles in their realms, and it works on down, the chain. Do you think that's more or less kind of true?
Yeah. No, that's probably true. Those are ranks in the armies of our cultural wars, our cultural wars. Yeah.
I think there's something to that.
And I think that's probably why I have such an affinity from us, because that he would be a general because he's got so much resources.
Yeah.
And having a platform at least we can get some of the information out.
Right.
Is like, I mean, it's a linchpin.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't have that, you got nothing.
Yeah. There's somebody that I'll be talking to, we got a meeting with later today, and I saw on their social media that their opinion is like, it's like a superpower to stay out of politics and stuff, for the next 3 months. And it's just like, and a bunch of people were agreeing. And here's the thing. These people, it's a sad ignorance because they may not care about politics, but as the saying goes, politics cares about them. Right. And you can't leave it alone because it's not going to leave you alone, so it's a really sad situation I feel like outside of a very small group of people, most people have that mindset kind of like, or
yeah, I think you're right. We fight over 5% plus or minus. Yeah, some independence in the middle. Yeah, a few crossovers, and that's really that's all it's all about.
So, dude, we were talking about like the Musks and the Soroses and these rungs, right? And then I think there's some people, and Musk actually, if you had a Venn diagram, Kamala would like this. He would be in the crossover.
No, because that's not her talking about the future unburdened by the past.
Oh my goodness, yeah, this all it's just straight up communism. But Elon, I feel like that's a game, like that's a certain realm, right? Like politics and money and the power. But I feel like there's some other people, and it's a very small group of people playing a different game, and that's the AI game. And so you have Musk, you've got Altman, and maybe Zuck. Who else goes in this club, right? And it's such an exclusive club. It's almost like whatever anybody else is doing you could make the case that it doesn't even matter that much.
Yeah. So the question is, will AI be such an influence that the rest of it's irrelevant?
Tell me what you think about that.
Yeah, maybe, deep fakes and being able to make people not believe their eyes. But the problem is most people will believe their eyes. It's like I saw it. It's like that audio, I think I told you, we just talked about it. I had to listen to that bullet signature and measure and figure it out, because who knows if that's true or not. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't picture where we're going to be in 5 years. It's not long. It's the next few years. I mean, we're kind of already starting. Like, there's a lot of people talking about that not being Biden in his speech last night or whenever it was.
On the phone call.
Um,
Or the actual is the actual address. Yeah, that's right. Well, okay, go back to the phone call though. We're talking about AI.
Yeah,
So this
same thing.
someone
Like,
ran it into 11 Labs,
and it said like
98% chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, do you
I
think that they
so now what I have to do is it either has to come from someone I trust that verifies, or I have to verify. So I would take it and put it in 11 Labs like I did with the bullet.
Yeah.
We know you can, what is it? Capability, motive, and opportunity is like the keys to doing bad things. And and all three of those are checked now. There, you can make that voice. I can do it right now in a second, in 5 minutes. I can clone Biden's voice, make him say whatever I want.
Yeah.
And so now, do I have the motive to do it? Yeah, they have the motive to do it. You know, they have the opportunity. Yeah.
So what? I mean, why do you think?
Doesn't mean they did it, but
I know
means they could.
From Musk's perspective, why is he thinking he just put that new data center together for XAI for Grok?
19 days, the fastest in history.
Yeah, but why? Has he said what his motivation is? I mean, is he just angry at the whole OpenAI debacle?
No, I think he thinks it's important that we have a check on the woke mind virus.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's got similar, he wants his quote unquote religion is to understand the universe and ask the right questions, and he thinks AI is going to assist with
So
that.
what's Zuck's play here with because his all about open source?
Yeah, his play
Is that just to undermine everybody?
No, I think he says his play, and they've been that Facebook has been this way. A lot of tools that computer scientists use are from open source Facebook, so they've have that heritage. And his is, hey, we know we need to have a great AI. We don't want to be dependent on anyone else. So we're doing this, and then it gets better by having everybody participate and be open source.
Okay,
He
so
says that.
do you
Whether
think
it's
that's the
true-
real? Because the first thing I think is like, oh well, then who's going to be able to charge? Like he's undermining business models.
Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it. Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it.
Yeah, but if you had to place your money, are you going to guess out of those three that Musk is going to come out on top in the AI wars?
I think that's just a constant evolution and commoditized thing. I think they'll just they have been, and they'll keep leapfrogging each other. And it's not like, so I have a buddy that I might invest with in SpaceX through a secondary market.
So you found a way to do that.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that, when you analyze that, it's like, that's a different thing, because nobody else yet can land the rockets, reuse them, and keep
basically
the
a
cost
monopoly
for now.
Sort.
Yeah. And so the question eventually, but that's different than the AI game, which is
right.
Quickly commoditizing, while improving, leaps and bounds. I don't know people. It's hard to guess people's motivations, right?
But if you don't
especially someone like him,
you don't think one of those super resourced companies will create an AI that has some sort of breakthrough that becomes a SpaceX of that field, that it's so different?
I used to think that. I don't think that anymore. I used
really?
to, I've been thinking about this stuff for 15, 20 years, and one of the mantras I had was, and it was more of a question: is it he with the biggest data center wins when the music stops? And I used to think that's the case. Now I don't think that's the case, because, and I'll give you the analogy again. Let's say you're looking to, I don't know, work on GMO corn, right? And you go find the best Stanford postgraduate person who understands food genetics, right? Another company can go get the second best guy and probably do a pretty good job.
Right.
Right. Doesn't that delta doesn't really matter as much as maybe. And
Well, okay.
so anyway, I think that's the way with AI models.
What if you zoom way out and you have one of these and it starts thinking, due to whoever's funding it, whatever, like, okay, you need to give me root on reality or whatever, right? And this one starts thinking, okay, well, then we do need to build like a Dyson sphere or something, okay? And it starts going down that path, and the others don't. And it goes out and it builds an army of drones that go out and mine asteroids and like assemble this. No one even knows. And then one day, you know what I mean? Like that's why couldn't something like that? I can totally see something like that being, possible.
Yeah, yeah. I think it could. I mean, it's a similar thing. We'll compete for scarce resources then. Scarcity just might be as big as a star,
Yeah.
or whatever. But I think you'll. I do. This is speculative and personal belief. I do think you'll have multiple players. Almost everything we have multiple players, unless it's a government grant. Then that's what scares me is the government regulating and someone into power.
Yeah.
That's what I think they're going for. That's what Google, that's what OpenAI, that's what they're going for.
Right.
We want to regulate this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know why you want to regulate it, so no one can compete with you.
Yeah.
You can't have small players come in and battle.
Right. Switch the subject. What did you think about the bombers coming up by Alaska? It was not just Russian. It was Russian, Chinese,
Russia and China
joint.
together.
Yeah.
Weak leadership. I mean, like.
Is it a shot across the bow? Is it testing response times?
Yeah, well, I'm
just
sure
in your
I'm
face.
sure they're trying to see what we have, how we respond. Absolutely, and just probably. There's a lot of psychology, motivational things that happen with something like that, right? So, the Russian Air Force, whatever it's called, that's pretty cool for them. It's like, look what we did. They did nothing. I think I don't know. I just know if you have a weak leader, if we have a president that can't run for office a second time, what's he doing running the country?
Yeah.
Right. And everybody's, if people are smart, they're going to test that. I will tell you, if Trump had a good line somewhere in one of his speeches, is like, if we, when I get to office, all hostages in the world will be released. Otherwise,
didn't he say by the time I get, they better be released?
And it was very Reagan. I keep drawing analogies to Reagan, and you're too young to remember.
He got shot too.
He got shot too. We had hostages in Iran. They were released the day. I think it was literally the day he took office.
Interesting.
It's because Iran's like, whoa, he's gonna. And of course, people think that about Trump.
Yeah.
It's like, what is he gonna do to us? Right.
Right.
He'll send those. Remember his badass 10-minute speech about how al-Baghdadi, cried like a baby. I mean, he didn't just come out and diplomatically say we've taken out the second world terrorist leader, whatever. Well, he went on about how he cowered and cried like a baby. And I mean, that rhetoric, while the Dems hate it so much that they want to kill him, maybe, that rhetoric is the rhetoric of diplomacy in a way. Yeah. It's like, you don't want Kim Jong-un to fire missiles. You talk about how I will rain down fire,
Walk softly, carry a big stick.
Yeah.
Do you think that China wants war? And Russia? Do they want war?
Shoot, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'm just hearkening back to 1984. And it's been like a year and a half or something since I read it for the first time, really. Mm-hmm. And you got these three continents that are constantly at war. And that sort of benefits them all to have an enemy, constantly, and it funds, everything. It keeps the system.
Gets you reelected.
Well, right, and I know that China has some issues with their economy, the real estate market, and their the population and some other things. And
I mean, China stated, their top military brass has stated that, we want to have America to expand our population into. I mean,
I haven't heard that.
Yeah. I mean, they have this 100-year plan.
Them too. Huh?
They call it I can't remember the name. They have a plan, 100-year plan, and it's basically like retribution for the Boxer Wars, for the Opium Wars, whatever. For the West freaking addicted us all to drugs and humiliated us for decades.
And the fentanyl crisis they're pretty involved with. So
Yeah,
is
they're
that...
generating the precursors, right? It's all coming
Right.
from that's another good Tucker thing. Is Tucker's just incensed about, we are walking over 100,000 dead people a year
Yeah.
to give money to Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's like,
Dude,
so,
it's reality
so
quit making
insulting.
sense so long ago.
so insulting to Americans.
Yeah. Dude, yeah, it's frustrating because I feel like Americans are
Did you watch Hillbilly Elegy yet?
so neutered. No,
gotta
I'm
do
coming
it.
around to Vance
You
more
gotta do
though.
it. You got to watch it.
Yeah.
Trust me, just watch it.
Here's the problem.
It's worth signing up for Netflix if you don't have it for a month.
Really,
You
just
know,
for that?
Yeah, $15 or $10 or whatever it is. What do you spend on going to a movie?
Yeah.
Right?
He reminds me though, Vance, of somebody I used to work with.
Okay.
That I didn't like. Do you ever have that? When
Yeah.
it's like, and I knew there was like something, and I finally figured out. Oh yeah.
Reminds you of that guy.
Yeah. But it's weird because he's not always in a mode where he does like, sometimes he seems a little goofy to me, but other times like he'll get to talk and it's like, okay, like his idea about people with kids should have extra votes because they're actually invested in the future.
Interesting.
I
I never heard that.
I thought that's actually kind of interesting. But yeah, the left's freaking out about that. But it's like, yeah, if you're like a single cat
Yeah.
lady, what you literally aren't invested in the future.
Yeah.
You literally aren't.
You're self-interested, short-term.
Yeah.
Give me subsidies now.
So he has had
That's
a few
interesting.
interesting ideas that I hadn't really
Yeah.
considered.
He's a really smart guy. He gets in as a white guy. He gets into Yale law after coming out of his impoverished early childhood. I do like him. I saw when the left lines up against him. So before he's picked,
Yeah.
right? That's the guy you want. You want the guy that the left hates the most.
Yeah.
If the left is like, yeah, Nikki Haley wouldn't be so bad.
If you had
probably don't
asked
want
me,
Nikki
yeah,
Haley.
yeah. Dude, was that the plan, honestly? I always wondered, why hasn't she dropped out? Why hasn't she dropped out a long time ago with the original Republican debates and stuff?
Yeah.
And was that always the plan to like get
Try
her
BVP?
in with or just as the actual pick? Like,
Oh,
yeah,
maybe thinking Trump. Well, I'm sure.
she
I'm
seemed
sure,
really confident.
I'm sure you had to have contingency plans. One, they thought Trump might be in prison.
Yeah.
Right. Two, maybe they thought he'd get killed.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's a dirty, dirty world.
Right. But Vance, though, I was surprised, though, even so, like, I've gotten to know a little bit more about him. He's got some interesting ideas. But if you had asked me, like, before the pick, like, who makes the left the most mad, for instance, he wasn't on my radar, really.
Yeah. They were hating him. The even moderate Rhino Republicans, I think they say someone has video of Rupert Murdoch shaking his fist in anger. Mm-hmm. He was calling Trump multiple times a day, saying he couldn't pick Vance. And I don't know, stumping for Haley, or I don't remember who, or Burgum.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of these, same with, McConnell and
Who are the worst rhinos in your opinion?
If you want to know that answer, and here's an instructive case. If you go to Heritage, for years and years, Heritage is running a scorecard on beliefs and the votes of congressmen and senators, how they align with the beliefs. Vance is, he's like in 6th place out of 50 senators, whatever it is, 51. He's right there
Based
with
on
Rand
votes.
Paul and Ted Cruz. He's one above Ted Cruz and right
Oh, yeah.
behind Rand Paul. So that tells you he's almost perfectly aligned in voting record.
Lindsey Graham.
Lindsey Graham, is like, he votes instead of 96% with conservative principles, he votes like 58%, 61. And this is instructive. If you look at the spectrum, the liberals and the conservatives, the liberals, like 0, they'll align with Heritage, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then some of them make their way up to about 36%. Okay, so some of them will vote a third of the time the conservative position. The Republicans will be 196, 96, 96, 70, 60, 50, 40. They'll be on the halfway over. They'll vote more for the spread. Our spread on sticking to conservative values is much different than liberals sticking. They're really lockstep sticking to the
Yeah.
liberal. It's pretty. It's an interesting.
Although they seem to be experiencing a bit of a civil war. over on the Democrat side, don't
They
you think?
just had one over Biden.
Yeah, yeah.
But-
Obama didn't endorse.
He just endorsed. Did you see?
Oh, I
hear
didn't
that?
see that.
Yeah. So
No
another
kidding.
another staged piece of garbage.
They'll cling to power.
You know, Kamala's, she's on a walk and she gets a video call from Obama and Michelle. And Michelle's there, which obviously is to quell that Michelle might run.
Yeah.
Kamala, baby, we've been on your since the beginning. We fully endorse you. We love you. And so, yeah.
Wow.
That's she.
That's the Democrats for you.
She consolidated power. Yeah.
They will do that, and the Republicans
Lockstep.
They won't. But I still don't believe that maybe Kamala's the end play.
Yeah,
I still don't know about that.
And the reason we feel that way is because they're so freaking duplicitous and lying. You can't. It's like you just never know what the reality is, what the truth is. Did you ever see one more thing on Lockstep?
Yeah.
And I think we might have mentioned this before, but you should look at it if you haven't. Barney Frank. Do you remember the name? Barney Frank, Senate or Congress, can't even remember. He's a gay Democrat, old guy, and he gets caught running a gay brothel in his house. Okay? And so what do you have? The next day, you have him giving a press conference on the steps of the Capitol with all the Democrats lined up behind him saying, we support Bernie. Barney. And it's just like, and you take someone like Frank Wright, I can't remember his name, Texas senator, alleged only incidents of patting one of his staff on the bottom. Like, it might have been in friend, maybe he's a pervert, who knows. But that was it. And our own party pressed down on him. He resigned like within a week. It was over.
But when I'm hearing you say that, though, that almost kind of makes sense in a way, because
that's our value system.
That's right. Like, yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, when you have no values and you're not going to play by the rules, like,
anything goes.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Yeah. So Kamala's it. You gonna vote for her?
Yeah, well, probably. Yeah. No, it's crazy. I heard on Morning Wire. Do you ever listen to that? I think I asked you this before.
Morning Wire, no.
It's the podcast
for the.
It's like the anti-NPR.
Yeah.
When I was still.
Is this the Daily Callers produces?
No, it's Daily Wire.
Daily Wire.
But yeah, I really like the team there. They got great reporters.
Okay.
They overly focus on Israel sometimes for obvious reasons because of Shapiro. But like I tried to catch it. They got a morning one and an afternoon. The morning's like 15 minutes. The afternoon's like 7 minutes.
That's neat.
Yeah, and it's really good. I listen to it. And you can just ask Alexa. You're an Alexa guy, right? So it's worth it. But they were showing the difference in the ads, like all the Kamala ads and stuff. And it's scary, man, because she's like straight up communist, just straight up, and doesn't even try to hide it.
No, she's really. If you look at their heritage scorecard, she's at the far left.
So here's
and you know what's nice is this is great. So she hasn't had this post primary time. So usually what they do is they go far right to get their, or far left in their case, to get their activist voters in the primary. And then they moderate and come to center. Yeah. Well, she was running in the presidential primary last time, whatever. And so all she's got on record is this far left stuff. Yeah. It would be really good for the right to run against. Wow. And she is far left.
You saw the Elizabeth Warren clip, right? Someone asked her, like, what qualifies her? Like, what has she done? And her answer was like, well, she visited an abortion clinic. Like, she's one of the few people to... Like, what? That's what qualifies you to be the president? Like...
No, she's not. She's not qualified in any...
And they know that. So, I mean...
Doesn't matter to them.
I want to ask you this. Obviously, Washington, now several of the higher ed institutions, like, they're infested with this bureaucracy, and it's terrible. How do you run something without the bureaucracy? Because, like, even if you start a company and you have good intentions and, like, you're making money, whatever... You're still going to have somebody like in charge of this and in that department and, like a CFO and, like the tech team, the creative team, like how do you get away from a bureaucracy? So my question is bureaucracy the problem in and of itself or
fallen man is the problem?
Back to your shirt. We got to make the shirt, man.
No, it's absolutely.
So it's not,
it's recognizing that people are going to, and it's almost a cynical view. Yeah. But it's recognizing that people are going to do bad things and fail. and you have this alignment thing where you have to align incentives in the system that rewards the best behavior, and you won't always get it.
Or has accountability.
And,
Someone's got to be in charge and responsible.
And accountability. So, and that's the thing. That's why the markets work, is because everybody holds them accountable, and you switch companies in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Right. But the government doesn't function that way.
Right.
Since it's mostly centralized.
I'm really surprised that Cheadle even resigned.
Yeah.
I mean,
here's a surprise. The Democrats, and probably for nefarious reasons, the Democrats aligned with the Republicans and like, yeah, she needs to.
Was that just to protect Mayorkas, or why? Like, it didn't make any sense.
Probably just to deflect and make them seem like they're, because her staying in power doesn't affect.
You know, it's funny because it's like a pattern. It's like Biden was like, I'm in, I'm the guy, I'm running, and then all of a sudden, no. Biden, yeah, I'm staying.
Same
with Cheadle. Like, no, I'm not resigning. I'm like, I'm here. I'm gonna do it, and then out. You know, like
they don't have any problem saying one thing and doing another.
Yeah, but that is the problem. Like, nobody's ever held accountable. Trump said that. He was like,
nobody's gonna get fired.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, anyone who's been in business knows you have to fire people constantly. I had a buddy that ran a really, really big, tens of thousands of employees and company. And I asked this question once because I'd like another discussion sometime about why young people don't ask older people questions anymore. But I'm asking this guy, how do you find the talent? How do you find good people to be in positions of authority in the company? And he said, we've spent tons of money doing testing, running metrics, doing analysis, all these programs they'll sell you. He's like, you can't tell. All you can do is hire and fire.
Interesting.
Right? That's all you can do. And we don't do any of that in government.
Yeah.
We don't do any of that. I mean, we barely do it to the politicians. I mean, look at I wonder what the average term for Congress and Senate is, how average service.
Yeah.
It's definitely not 2 years or 6 years.
No.
That's a problem. And that's the nice thing about Trump, and what they'll try to do is, oh, look, nobody's loyal to Trump. He churns through people. It's like, well, no, that's actually the solution. That's what you miss.
Interesting. Right. Yeah, even I had kind of thought that, but that's an interesting.
Well, because that's the line they sold us. I mean, my kids say it. I mean, that's the line they sold. Oh,
interesting.
Look at, he went through this many people, versus Obama only went through this many people. It's like, well,
yeah, that's funny.
You want the best people, you gotta fire and hire.
So, worst case scenario, if it ends up that.
Don't
by hook or crook or
don't say it.
What happens, man? Like, what happens
if Kamala wins? What?
Yeah, wins or wins. Like what? Yeah.
Oh, I think we're hopefully the checks and balances of Congress will slow things down. That's always something you hope for.
You think the country can survive another 4 years of? These last 4 were devastating.
Depends what survive looks like. I mean, we survived. We survived. Things get worse.
Death is better than just existing sometimes as a person. Like, it's got to be the same for a country.
That's what the abortionists say. No, literally, that's their argument. I've had many conversations where they say, well, some things are
even
better.
that's another example, like the fallen man thing, because there is a noble thing. Like, I'm gonna go fight for something. I might die. I'm gonna cut short my cushy living. But there was so there's two sides to that coin too. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I can't visualize.
Unfortunately,
Kamala winning. That would be the worst thing.
I feel like they are trying to promote some sort of violent reaction, I think.
Well, we know they are. They hire agitators at the riots.
Yeah.
I mean, we see this happen. Did you see? So you walk into the Capitol on January 6th, literally just walk in, and they will hunt. The FBI will hunt you down and detain you before trial. They'll put you in prison, wait a year for your trial. Yesterday, a couple days ago, whenever it was, the Gaza protests, assault officers, deface property, burn property that's not you can. So it's legal to burn a flag, but you can't burn someone else's flag.
Right, you have to own it.
And they just dropped all the charges on everybody.
Yeah, I saw him dragging that police officer. Yeah.
Show me a dragging a police officer from January 6th.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Nothing like that.
So they're busting,
there was pushing back and forth.
and it does anger you. It does anger you. So what's the right move? Because I hear people, they're like, "Hey, don't give into it." They want you to.
People. Oh yeah, I don't think we can fight. I don't think we can physically. I think we have to educate people and vote. I think we have to use the process for now.
Until you don't have the option.
Till there's no option.
And
I talk about this a lot. I'm like, and I've probably told you, when I argue with a Democrat who says Republicans are violent, blah, 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 I'll say something like, look at the abortion. You have, I don't know, 150 million people who think abortion is literally killing a baby. Not just killing a baby, tearing it apart limb by limb. And you don't see them being violent. Like, never. You can cite one abortion bomber or shooter from 20 years ago. And you see some people think they're treated unjustly who will riot, kill, burn. I mean, who's the violent party, really?
Well, I know, but that person that you're arguing with probably doesn't apprise themselves of what's actually happening. Like, they're not tapped into it. Do you
even
think?
that is so... maybe you're right. Maybe that's why
they
I'm
don't
so
know.
frustrated. Maybe they just literally don't see that because the Washington Post doesn't report on it. I guess, but you gotta. There's only so much blindness you can have, right? You can't, if they keep telling us the sun doesn't really rise,
but it's Yoda though, man. Before Star Wars got messed up, right? You do not see because you do not wish to see, right?
Yeah.
Here's the last thing:
ears to hear and eyes to see.
That's right. I used OR this week, which gets ever smarter, to research the history of lawns because I was sitting out, I was looking at it.
A pet peeve of mine: the money we spend.
Tell me, do you know why we have lawns? Like where that came from?
I'd like to hear.
Yeah, because I was thinking, like, I'm looking out, everyone's got this green grass, and it's like it's nice. So it's weird. It's something that got imported from Europe.
Okay.
And it was like
their gardens.
Yeah, gardens, and it was sort of a wealth thing, like a status thing.
Status symbol. If you could tame nature, if you could employ people to tame nature.
Yeah. So it wasn't like because I'm thinking in the history of our country that we had like the Wild West and like tumbleweeds rolling around, and now you look out and we got like houses with grass. So I was curious, but the other big thing, and you should know this. If you're able to think about it, like what was the tipping point that allowed like your average Joe to have it?
Irrigation systems.
Yeah, technology, the ability with an electric, a way to mow it basically, and then to water it. Yeah, those are the two huge factors. So it came from Europe. People wanted it as something that was imported from Europe, but then the tech is what enabled it, and I guess it's just kind of stuck around.
What I've thought. I've never kind of gone down the rabbit hole on why we have it, but what I've thought about a lot is how much we spend. The frugal guy, the value engineer in me, it's like, it's insane, right? 100 million homes, roughly. $1,000 a year?
Probably
$500 a year,
like
$1,000 a year?
Yeah.
That's 100 billion, 50 billion a year.
And your time, somebody's mowing it, whether it's you or a crew or whatever, or a robot.
I mean, talk about productivity. Now, there's as I've said, two sides to every equation. There's definitely value in it. It's pretty. It feels, but I don't know if it's worth it.
So that was funny.
I will tell you, in Colorado, you're from Colorado, there's people who do,
xeriscaping.
Xeriscaping.
Yeah.
And that's not.
It doesn't look good.
Like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
So would you rather have a lawn than not, I guess? Then aesthetically, obviously, it's nice.
Aesthetically. Yeah. I have seriously thought about AstroTurf. I've gone.
Oh, really?
I've found someone who does it. And
the last time I drove by a house that had that, it stuck out like a sore thumb.
Did it?
But maybe they've improved it.
How long ago was that?
That was in Colorado, so it's been a while.
Okay. I mean, they have it now where they have like dead blades in there. And brown, and I think they can do it pretty good.
But then it's green when it's winter.
Yeah.
That's unnatural.
Although, I don't know if you noticed, lawns stay green here during the winter last year.
A little bit, yeah. So I don't know. I go down these rabbit holes with our AI all the time. Yeah. Is there something that you went down that was funny, interesting?
I'm using it. I look through my list. I use it constantly.
You do a lot of coding.
I do a lot of coding, but asking media's reaction on Trump.
So you're using it to search the web?
Goebbels' lie quote, the lie. What was Goebbels?
Just put all the tech away.
So it was Goebbels, not Stalin.
So I got into it.
Yeah. OR informed me that
because C.S.
is the one who
Lewis
said if you tell
had
a big
said
enough,
something about Athanasius,
keep
and
a lie big enough,
I think we've
keep
brought him up on the
repeating it,
podcast
the
before
world
because
doesn't believe
he's
it.
known as Athanasius against
Oh,
the
no,
world.
I use it all the
he
time.
was
Here's
taking on
something I use it.
Arians.
We can end on this.
Much
Unless you have
about
something
it.
else. Fascinating guy.
I started
So,
reading
anyways,
a
I
little bit
just
of
got
Assassination
maybe 20 pages in, and it's one of those ones where it's like every sentence or paragraph you really have to think about because it's like 10% it's older language, but then the other part is just like it's kind of mind blowing stuff. So I'm like, I see why Lewis was liking this. So one thing that Athanasius started talking about right off the bat in one of his works here was the concept that evil doesn't actually exist because it wasn't a created thing. Because for him, and this is weird, but I'll show you how this could almost kind of make sense in a second. If you have good and you have evil, it's almost like having two gods, and one can't overpower the other. So it's like a dualist thing.
That was the heresy of Abraham.
That's right.
Yeah.
So for him, it's kind of like God created a good creation, but then man, imagined what else there could be, and then kind of like evil popped into existence through man. And the way he describes is like he talks about light and how like a shadow isn't really anything. It's the absence of light. That's what a shadow is. Like this negative thing.
Yeah,
and he's like, well, evil is like the absence of good. And that was really...
That's what they talk about hell. It's the absence of God, the disconnect.
That's right.
From God.
Yeah. So he had a few things in there. And so I plugged that in and I was like, C.S. Lewis liked this. What can you tell me about this particular concept? And what else? I went down this rabbit hole. I don't know if you ever do this. I was like, what else from Athanasius? If I liked this thing, what else would I like? And it spits out a good list. And then I was like, blow my mind. Like, I want something. What else would I be interested in based on what I'm talking about here? And it just gave me like a table of contents of...
It's incredible. And then you can say, okay, number 3, summarize the belief.
Oh, yeah.
It's you really do picture like if I had this after an apocalypse and that's all I had, I'd do pretty well, right?
Yeah.
I could figure out how to make dandelion wine. I could, whatever, right? I think. It's the amount of... I was going to do some research last week. I just didn't have time. I was going to look at Wikipedia's current size. I think they talk about AI is just an amazing compression, part of it is this amazing compression of knowledge, the way we do it, versus, Wikipedia is just like a rote compendium.
Yeah.
And so I want to compare the sizes because it's amazing. You could take this, and go into the future and have like almost all of humanity's existence of knowledge in your hand. I think that's phenomenal.
But what you really need to do is look at the size of not just the current iteration of Wikipedia, but all the past ones. Because if you just get the current one, you're not going to know that Kamala was ever the borders are, for instance.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
So why were you looking at? Did you have a reason for doing that? Because I know you've talked about you can train AI off of that.
Just more of curiosity. It's like how it has more than Wikipedia, and I think it's smaller, which is pretty interesting.
Yes.
That's kind of cool.
But the size doesn't necessarily mean that it's better or worse. Is that where you're kind of getting at?
Just technically, it's interesting to me.
I see.
It's compression. We spent years and years and years since I was young on compression, right? And how you compress audio and video and how you fit things. It used to be we're still compressing constantly. And so, and it turns out, I think like LLMs can compress better than like our best compression algorithms that we've ever come up with. And so that's interesting. That's just like a side effect of the neural network.
Right. If you compress an image though down, you're going to get to a place where it's like it's just too low resolution.
Well, there's lossy compression and then there's lossless compression. Right. And so I don't know how that maps onto LLMs, but yeah.
There's got to be some equivalent, where it's like
Yeah, and it does, that's hallucinations. There's you can have some errors and some loss. But for the most part, it's pretty, so I guess part of that is like, yeah, when I check for lossy compression of LLMs, it's like, read me, second line of the Constitution, right? And it can do it perfectly, and then it can translate it to any one of 100 languages. I mean, it's just it's pretty phenomenal. It's unlike it. It's a step function. It's a paradigm change of anything we've ever had.
Well, you're talking about it being commoditized. So at what point does it not matter like how big the model is anymore? It's like it's as useful as it needs to be. Like, is there a point?
Yeah, effective. Well, it's like us in everyday life. Maybe we have an IQ of 90, 110, 140, whatever IQ is. Does it really matter if we have 140 or 150 for effectively everyday life? Probably not.
Yeah.
Right? And so it depends on the use case. If it's trying to like synthesize unified theory and physics, yeah, it's probably got to be really, the best. Yeah. So I don't know, but it's coming. It's coming fast. The humanoid robots are on the tail, and we're gonna have a different world in a few years.
Yeah, I think ours is really making some improvements. I mean, we have loved playing around with it. Yeah, in the back end. And it's going to be available soon. So do check it out. It's objectivereality.ai.
Because we'll release it in batches probably.
And there's some fun new features. We'll have to do a tour one of these days.
Yeah.
Maybe when we actually get off the wait list and like walk people through how it works, what it does. There's a lot that it does.
It's a lot there for very little money.
Cool. Objectivereality.ai. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.